So each time I watch that clip, two things startle me. One is just the willingness of this father, very deliberate choice to sacrifice his only son. That's startling. But also as startling is that nobody on the train has a clue that just happened. And just using that as a framework for what we've been talking about this whole season, each one of us have friends on that train who don't have a clue about the sacrifice that has been made on their personal behalf. Some of them have some clues and some facts about the gospel, but they don't understand that it was for their personal behalf. And so what we're called to do is to explain the meaning of the sacrifice of the Son. And so we're going to come to the cross tonight. When we think about coming to the cross, we're reminded of our need for salvation, but we're also reminded of our Savior, right? Our salvation is in one person. It's one name, Jesus the Christ. Our memory verse from Acts chapter 4 says there is salvation in no one else. Right? There is no other name under heaven given among men by which we must be saved. And each one of us have been on a journey, have gone through a journey of coming to the cross. Some of you here tonight might still be on that journey of coming to the cross for the first time. But when I say coming to the cross, I'm talking about when our mind and our emotion and our will all align and we trust our lives into the hands of Jesus Christ, right? So all of us have gone through that journey. Jesus said that the Father is the one who is kind of driving that journey for us behind the scenes, right? That's our other memory verse, John 6:44, right? Jesus said that no one can come to me unless the Father who sent me, what? Draws him, right? And when I think of that draw, I'm thinking of these strong arms, maybe pulling in a full fishing net. And just inevitably, this net's coming to the boat. And there's strong arms drawing. So tonight, I want to just share with you how God drew me to himself. And then we're going to bring each other to the cross by turning to our grip partners and sharing the same thing. So let me just briefly share my story. Some of you may have heard this before, but if you would have known me 39 years ago, 18-year-old outside of Philadelphia, you would have thought I had the ideal life. I was well-liked. I had lots of friends. I did well in school. I did well in sports. I had a girlfriend. My parents loved me. They were married. I was the president of a youth group at our church. I was even voted Rotary Boy of the Month one month, whatever that means. I remember specifically in May or June, right when I was about to graduate from high school, thinking there has got to be something more to life than this. Like when you're in high school, the whole idea of being well-rounded is like drilled into you. I'm going to be well-rounded. But there had to be something more to life than this. Now looking back on that, that was like one stage in God drawing me to himself by making me aware that I was empty, even though circumstance-wise, I had it made. Everything was great for me, right? And so I thought, well, maybe I'm going to find the answer at college. Maybe that's what I need, just a college education. Well, I did find the answer at college, but it wasn't in my professors or classes or textbooks. It was in a small group of students. And these Christian students had a peace and a contentment that I didn't have. And they invited me to study the Bible with them. I'm like, okay. And I remember thinking, while we were in this Bible study, these people really believe this book. I was startled by that thought. Like, these people, they're in college, and they believe this book? Well, again, looking back on it, God was drawing me to himself by putting me in a front row seat with people who weren't empty. They had a fullness. They had a confidence. They were attractive people to me. Right? I was a freshman in college. And when I joined this group, I joined with two other guys that I just met. I've known them for 3 days or something in a week on my college hall. After a couple months in this study, one of these guys said, you know what? this really isn't for me. I don't really need to cultivate my spiritual life. And he kind of went the fraternity route. I'm not saying that you can't be a Christian and go to fraternity, but that's kind of where he went. The guy on my left had a born-again experience and was born from above and was changed radically. And here I am in the middle, right? We've seen this in the book of Acts. Some people kind of sneer and reject. Some people like cheer, like, yes, this is what I want. And some people like, come, we want to hear you again. That was me. I want to hear you again. But again, looking back on it, God was drawing me to himself by putting two people who responded to the gospel. One response was, I don't really need it. And one response is, man, this is what I need. And so he was saying to me, you need to respond. Right? And so it was a couple months later where I was really convicted that even though I was a moral man, I was good on the outside, I was totally all about me. And it was just totally selfish. I wasn't the guy necessarily drunk on the hall during fraternity rush week, but I had all kinds of sin. And it was sourced in just being totally about me. And of course, now I know that in Revelation chapter 3, verse 1, it says, Jesus says to one of the churches, he says, you have a reputation for being alive, but you are dead. Right? So that's who I was. Freshman year, knelt down alone in my dorm room, and I prayed something like this. I can't remember the exact words, but I remember saying something like, God, I don't understand all of this. But I do understand that I'm a sinner, and I'm totally selfish, and I know that I cannot come in your presence with sin. And so would you forgive my sin on the basis of what Jesus did on the cross and come into my life? Something like that. I remember immediately I had this sense of relief, and looking back on it, if I had to put words on it, I would say I felt like I did something profoundly right. Like I was aligned now with the God of the universe. You know, I know the Bible now tells me that I was right with him because of what Jesus did for me on the cross. And so since then, you know, I had my purpose changed. My purpose was now to serve a new audience that I had. So I didn't have to rely on my friends or my parents or now my wife or my boys to gain significance or security because I already have it. I've always been given it by God. Right? And so he even helps me relate with people in an unselfish way, which was not my way at all. So I haven't arrived yet in God's work on me, and I'm not perfect, but I've tasted this new life, and there's something inside me, internally, that compels me to want to pursue it. Right? So that's a very summary version of my story. Now, I want us to bring each other to the cross by doing the same thing with our grip partner. If you have your grip guides, turn to the pink section, and I will walk you through this. I want you to turn 3 pages in. So once you get to the pink section, it's actually page, I'll tell you because I numbered them, 134. But anyway, the first page, turn that. Second page, turn that. The third page, turn it. On the back of it, it should say, sharing how you came to Christ. All right? And it's kind of just this idea of what your life was before, and then how you came to Christ, and then one way that God has changed you in your life. All right? So what we want you to do is it's going to have to be a summary because we only have about 3 or 4 minutes for each person. So if you're grip pairing about 4 minutes each, you'll turn to each other and just let one guy go and just share this. And maybe tonight, maybe for the first time you might think, well, how was God drawing me through this process? At the time, you're not probably thinking that. But now, looking back on it, you know that God was drawing you to himself. So we're going to do that. If you have a triad, that's fine. You probably have 3.5 minutes each. I want you to do it. If you're a guest here tonight, either you can listen, or if you have a couple guests or whatever, you can do it together, like in my team. After you share, I want you to go ahead and pray, and I want you to pray. The natural prayer was thank God for how he worked and drew your grip partner to himself. All right. So the only talking I want to hear is people telling their story or praying, and we'll prompt you when it's time to pray if you haven't already started praying. Does that make sense?